president, you gain 10 times more income for the average family than Joe Biden. It's because of your policies.
And that's taken into consideration COVID,
Yep.
which a lot of times you don't have to do that.
Prices are starting to rise for American consumers as President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs on nearly all imported goods are kicking in.
In just a few months, the United States has witnessed an unprecedented wave of supermarket closures. Walmart, the symbol of affordable groceries, is pulling out of dozens of communities, leaving behind sprawling food deserts where residents must drive for miles just to buy milk or a bundle of fresh vegetables. On the surface, the reason seems simple: falling sales, rising costs. But behind the scenes lies a tangled chain of causes, from President Trump's new tariff policies to escalating trade friction with Canada and Mexico to the cold, calculated profit strategies of retail giants. The Trump administration slapped new import tariffs on a wide range of food and consumer products under the banner of protecting domestic production. But the truth is, many of these products simply cannot be produced in sufficient quantities in the U.S., especially fresh produce, fruits, and certain meats.
Instagram video by Mercedes Chandler shows price tags torn off old prices. $6.98 shirts now $10.98. Backpacks up from $19.97 to $24.
When tariffs hit, import prices surged by 20 to 50%. Retailers were forced to either raise shelf prices or cut supply. Walmart, whose empire is built on the promise of low prices, faced an ugly choice: accept historically low profit margins or pull out of low-profit markets. They chose the latter. Canada, America's largest agricultural partner, retaliated with tighter import standards, from quarantine checks to traceability requirements to new permits, making it harder for U.S. goods to enter the Canadian market. Mexico seized the moment to strike deals with alternative suppliers, cutting its dependence on American farm products. The fallout was brutal. Millions of tons of goods piled up in storage, farm prices collapsed, but retail prices still rose due to distribution costs and tariffs stacked on top of each other. For Walmart, especially in low-income areas, the math didn't work. The easiest way to stop the bleeding? Close the doors. Walmart is not a charity. Every store runs on a strict profit formula. When logistics costs soared, thanks to tariffs and higher fuel prices, and consumer spending dropped due to inflation, rural and small-town locations became liabilities.
You're absorbing the cost right now.
I'm absorbing the cost.
Will you continue to absorb the cost?
No. No, I won't. I can't afford to.
Corporate boards look at spreadsheets, not community maps. The result? Entire towns lost their only affordable source of fresh groceries with a single network restructuring announcement. Tariffs, higher import costs, higher retail prices, lower consumer spending, shrinking profit margins, store closures, the birth of food deserts. In states like Arkansas, Ohio, and New Mexico, the nearest supermarket is now 30 to 50 miles away. Residents are left relying on convenience stores, which mostly sell processed foods, snacks, and canned goods, fueling a rise in diabetes, heart disease, and malnutrition. Trump frames this as a tough strategy to win trade advantages, but governors and mayors call it shooting ourselves in the foot. They warn that slapping tariffs and triggering retaliatory measures without strengthening domestic distribution systems is a recipe for localized food crises. The tension is clear. Washington plays geopolitical chess, while small-town America pays with empty shelves and rising grocery bills. The truth is, you don't need a hurricane or a drought to spark a food crisis. All it takes is a string of policy decisions and corporate strategies made without regard for the people they affect. From the White House to Walmart's boardroom, the numbers on a balance sheet have outweighed the basic human need for a meal. And when the last store in town shuts its doors, a food desert is no longer an abstract term. It's your home address. So here's the question. When policymakers and market giants treat your dinner table as just another data point, who will stand up for your right to eat?
The U.S. marks its latest trade deal, this time with the European Union.
This doesn't portend well, very well for Canada.
It's the tariffs that Canada has put on goods coming in from the U.S. that are hurting the people in Alberta the most.
There is no longer a country called Canada, only a lonely nation named Ottawa. This phrase, once dismissed as political theater, now echoes with unsettling truth. As global powers like Japan and the European Union race ahead with new trade pacts with the United States, Canada finds itself dangerously isolated. Worse still, the unrest is no longer limited to average citizens. The country's own premiers, the pillars of federal unity, are now openly clashing with Ottawa. What we're witnessing is not just a political rift, it's the slow unraveling of a nation's core.
Unfortunately, for Canadians, the stakes are far too high. The affordability crisis is very real. We are in a vulnerable position.
At the latest meeting of Canada's premiers, frustration boiled over. Ontario's premier didn't hold back, declaring, "We buy more U.S. products than Japan, China, the UK, and France combined. We're their #1 customer, and we shouldn't have to beg for respect." Alberta's voice was even sharper. While Ottawa waits for negotiations, we lose billions in exports and jobs. Quebec joined the chorus, blasting federal inaction as not just weak, but dangerous. These are not isolated complaints. This is a coordinated message from Canada's provinces. Enough is enough. The trust is gone. Ottawa is standing alone. While Canada waits, the U.S. has already finalized deals with Japan and the EU, both securing major tariff reductions, especially in auto exports.
I think it's the biggest deal ever made. Thank you very much.
The baseline 15% tariff rate granted to them stands in stark contrast to the looming 35% Canada now faces on key exports if no deal is reached by August 1st. President Trump, speaking bluntly, said, "We haven't had a lot of luck with Canada. Maybe there's no negotiation. Maybe it's just a tariff." For a country once seen as America's closest economic partner, that's not just a warning, it's a public demotion. In Windsor, auto plants are reducing shifts. In St. Catharines and Oshawa, supply chain delays are stacking up. Small manufacturers say they're already absorbing losses from steel and aluminum tariffs. Farmers in Saskatchewan, exporters in Quebec, they all report rising costs, dropping confidence, and fewer trade routes. For the past decade, Canadian businesses thrived under predictable NAFTA-era terms.
That's what the MOU is about today, is how can we find a way to support each other, and then in addition to that, find a way to get to new markets.
Today, they operate under a fog of uncertainty, while Ottawa urges patience that industries can no longer afford. Confidence is collapsing, investment is drying up, and workers are paying the price. Across social media, a wave of frustration is swelling. Buy Canadian slogans have turned into sarcastic hashtags. People ask, buy what? The shelves are empty or overpriced. Consumers feel trapped, paying more for less with no leadership in sight.
Premier Smith and Premier Moe said, we have to be leaders in the G7 when it comes to our economy, and we need to unleash every tool in our Canadian toolbox and tell the world that Canada's open for business.
Many accuse Ottawa of chasing the illusion of a perfect deal while letting real opportunities vanish. Even staunch federalists now echo provincial sentiments that Ottawa no longer understands or serves the everyday Canadian. The anger isn't just about trade, it's about identity and a feeling that the country is slipping away from its people. Canada is at a crossroads. While Ottawa still clings to the belief that the right deal will come, the provinces are moving on. Premiers are no longer asking politely, they are demanding autonomy, demanding action. The longer Ottawa waits, the deeper the rift grows. What remains is not just a gap in policy, but a canyon in trust. And if this trajectory continues, what we'll be left with is not a nation, but a lonely capital called Ottawa, surrounded by provinces already charting their own course toward a different future.
Canada intends to recognize the State of Palestine at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025.
Donald Trump does not support the creation of a Palestinian state and criticized Canada's decision on social media. That will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them, Trump said.
The air in Ottawa is heavier than ever. With less than 1 day to go before the critical trade deadline, a political bomb has exploded across the border. Donald Trump has openly threatened to shut down trade with Canada after Prime Minister Carney confirmed plans to support Palestinian statehood if conditions are met. Just after midnight, Trump blasted on Truth Social. Wow, Canada has just announced that it is backing statehood for Palestine. That will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them. Oh, Canada! This wasn't diplomacy. This was a blunt ultimatum. Trump has hijacked the trade talks and turned them into a geopolitical pressure campaign. For months, negotiations have dragged on with slow progress. But now, Canada's political stance on the Israel-Palestine issue has triggered an economic threat. Trump views Canada's move as betrayal, especially while he tries to consolidate U.S. influence in the Middle East.
The president has signed that. He has increased the rate from 25% to 35%. It is important for everybody listening and watching to understand what that means.
His retaliation? A 35% tariff across Canadian goods unless Ottawa folds. Carney had previously insisted Canada wouldn't sign any deal at any cost. Now he's facing a wall of demands. Trump wants Canada to accept a deal modeled after the EU and Japan, where Washington dictates purchases and demands silence on foreign policy.
If Donald Trump's threats are real, Canada has just hours to secure a trade deal with the U.S. The deadline, midnight Eastern.
And Trump has already made a move. He just ordered a 35% tariff on semi-finished copper products from Canada effective August 1. This isn't negotiation, it's a chokehold. Within Canada, frustration is exploding. Provincial premiers, especially from Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario, are publicly blasting Ottawa. One Western premier stated bluntly, "Instead of defending our economy, Ottawa's picking political fights that get working Canadians punished."
We haven't spoken to Canada today. He's called, and we'll see.
Many provinces now openly favor stronger U.S. ties, pointing out they trade more with U.S. states like Texas and Montana than with Ontario or Quebec. Some leaders even hinted at revisiting sovereignty discussions if Ottawa keeps isolating itself diplomatically and economically. If no deal is reached by August 1, Trump has vowed to impose 35% tariffs on goods not complying with CUSMA, the Canada-US-Mexico agreement. Sectors at risk include steel and aluminum, automobiles and parts, pharmaceuticals and semiconductors, softwood lumber.
1 year ago, we were a dead country. Now we're the hottest country in the world. Look at you people. We're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We're doing great.
All are now labeled national security interests by Trump, giving him legal cover for sweeping tariffs. This is an economic ransom note, plain and simple. Trump boasts about recent trade wins with the EU and Japan. Now he's sending a clear message. If Canada doesn't obey, I'll just slap tariffs and move on. Meanwhile, Canada's negotiators have little room to maneuver. Despite appearances, both Ambassador Kirsten Hillman and Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc acknowledge the odds are low for a deal before the deadline. Even Carney, while in PEI, said talks had entered an intense phase, a diplomatic way of saying everything's falling apart. This is no longer about trade, it's a raw power struggle, and Canada is caught in the middle. Trump has laid out the terms: surrender political independence or suffer a full-blown economic assault. Ottawa may be trying to hold the line, but time is running out, and the real question now isn't whether Canada will suffer, it's how deep the damage will be, and who, in the end, will pay the price.
Do you think Mr. Carney understands Quebec?
I think he does not give a damn.
Canada's strong. We can give ourselves far more than anyone can take away. We're building this great country. I just met with the Premier.
Canada is facing the most serious federal crisis in decades, with Quebec now openly declaring it is exploring a sovereignty referendum, and Alberta charging ahead with plans for a 2026 separation vote. The very foundation of the nation is cracking.
Albertans could vote on leaving Canada as soon as 2026. That is the update from Premier Danielle Smith after she met with Prime Minister Mark Carney and after hundreds rallied for Alberta independence.
This is no longer about scattered voices of discontent. It is structured, organized, and planned. While Ottawa remains paralyzed in vague promises and recycled slogans, two of Canada's most powerful provinces are quietly drafting their exits. Premier François Legault has dropped all pretense. He publicly declared that Quebec is now actively considering holding a new referendum on sovereignty. This isn't just political posturing, it's a parting speech dressed as a press conference. Years of feeling sidelined culturally, linguistically, and economically have boiled over into a concrete path towards separation. Quebec asked Ottawa to reduce the number of temporary immigrants by 50%. The federal government never responded.
Of course, we would like to have a part of that.
Legault wants Canada to renegotiate the free trade agreement with the United States. Opposition parties are calling on the Premier to protect Quebec's interests.
Tensions flared when Prime Minister Mark Carney hinted he may support a Supreme Court challenge against Bill 96, Quebec's law protecting the French language. Legault slammed him publicly, declaring that Carney doesn't care about Quebec. Quebec sees this as an attack on its core identity, and it's fighting back. Premier Danielle Smith has already prepared the legal groundwork for Alberta's separation. The threshold for a referendum petition has been drastically lowered to 177,000 signatures. The vote is planned for 2026.
None of us knows what the future holds should Ottawa, for whatever reason, continue to attack our province, as they have done over the last decade.
Alberta passed the Sovereignty Act, along with the DIY guide for breaking up with Canada, timelines, legislation, procedural frameworks. In Alberta, 65% of UCP voters now support independence. In Quebec, sovereignty support has surged from below 30% to nearly 40% in just weeks. On social media, discussions about joining the U.S. as the 51st or 52nd state are growing. Even if half-joking, it shows a profound collapse in faith in Ottawa. Mark Carney is being criticized for barely mentioning Quebec's key industries, aerospace, forestry, and fisheries. After Quebec helped the Liberal Party gain seats in 2021, it now feels completely ignored. Carney's reaction? Ambiguous statements and soft gestures, described by critics as a sleep-deprived intern drafting farewell speeches at midnight. No commitment, no firm response, just delay. When two of your largest provinces begin drafting divorce papers while the federal government clings to old slogans and vague hopes, the dream of a unified Canada is quickly slipping away. Quebec and Alberta are no longer mere rebels. They are now organized political machines with real public support and structured exit plans. If Ottawa doesn't wake up, if it doesn't take real, concrete action instead of reciting hollow lines, then Canada may soon be nothing more than the lonely name of a capital city, isolated on a map that is quietly being redrawn.